You want answers?
I think I'm entitled to.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
People have been waiting for this for so long. They've been so hopeful that a bill like this would pass, and now that the law has passed, folks are really just jumping to take advantage of it.
It's called House Bill 40, the Landmark Felony Expungement Act. July 15th, 2016. A day that gave new freedom to thousands across the Commonwealth saddled with a criminal past. In the studio, attorney Benham Sims is our guest. It's all tonight, all on this edition of Ask a Lawyer. Next.
Welcome to Ask a Lawyer, a service of the Louisville Bar Association and the Institute for Legal Studies at Sullivan University. It's the show for everyday people with everyday questions on the law. And now, here's your host, Randy Bulleit.
This is Ask a Lawyer. It's a call-in show. We're going to be with you for the next hour to take your calls on legal matters affecting your lives. And now, as I stated earlier, he is our guest. Let's introduce him. He's in the studio spotlight tonight. A special justice to the Supreme Court of Kentucky, a prosecutor, a district court judge, today renowned criminal defense attorney. If you've been arrested, you're charged with a crime. It's all very frightening in its uncertainty. Your anxiety is overwhelming. Despite your panic, he offers his calming voice. I am here to help you through it all. He's a law graduate from the University of Louisville Brandeis School of Law, but went to serve as director of the DUI Jury Trial Division for Jefferson County, drafting and subsequently publishing the Kentucky's Prosecutor's DUI Trial Manual. His efforts culminated in his being recognized as the ensuing recipient of the prestigious Outstanding Public Service Award, an honorarium conferred upon him, statewide, in fact, by Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, as acknowledgement in their community-wide statement that drunk driving is still the number one cause of death on our roadways. Recognized by the Office of the Kentucky Attorney General, honored as Outstanding Public Service Award, and two, honored by Jefferson County Fraternal Order of Police, decreeing upon him as Prosecutor of the Year. A most prolific highlight in his career to date is his initiative shown, in part, in participation in drafting and a proprietor in the passing of this legislative landmark act, House Bill 40, the Felony Expungement Bill made into law in the signature by Governor Matt Bevin, a five-time winner of the prestigious Louisville Magazine's Top Lawyer Award. Tonight, the Louisville Bar Association, in cooperation with the Institute for Legal Studies at Sullivan University, welcomes into these iHeart studios attorney Benham Sims. Welcome, Benham.
Well, thank you, Randy. I'm excited to be here and talk about a subject that I have tremendous passion for, and that is to help people who have made mistakes when they're younger to be able to secure employment, to be able to volunteer at their child's school, to be able to coach a little league, to be able to volunteer in their community and their church. And I think you're right that expungement has been and will be for some decades transformative legislation for Kentucky families. And I was honored to play a role along with so many others you didn't include, like Darrell Owens. Then a number of people who were both Republicans and Democrats who saw the need to change Kentucky's law and allow Kentucky workers to be competitive with workers from surrounding states. And it's a passion of mine, and it's something I hope to end my career with, helping people all over this state move on with their lives and secure full-time employment and meaningful employment.
Benham, you come from a multi-generation legal background of family members as well. I understand your wife, a family court judge, Deborah DeWeese. She is from Louisville. She deals with some issues involving drug court as well.
That's correct. And she was a district court for almost 20 years and really helped in juvenile law issues and served on many state task force to address the problems of juvenile crime and the problems our children are facing, and with families who are not your typical mother and father environment, but face many challenges.
Benham, quite an honorarium tonight in your introductions, commendations of milestones that you have accomplished in your career. All true, all accurate, and as baseball great Dizzy Dean once said, it ain't bragging if you can do it, and you've certainly done it. Benham, your website reads today, "Let's work together to protect you." Just give us a brief synopsis of your law practice, if you will, today, on a day-to-day practice of what you do.
Well, I'm really transitioning to more of a boutique practice that focuses on helping people secure expungement of charges on their criminal record or convictions on their criminal record. And because of some significant leadership from Darrell and from certain state senators and state representatives and Governor Bevin, there's a new day in our state for Kentucky workers. And we want to help the 91,000 people in Kentucky who have Class D felonies on their record. And I would assume about 200 to 300,000 Kentuckians who have charges or misdemeanor convictions on their record.
Benham, this is certainly your hour, and it is a celebrated hour, hopefully, for, you stated, the 91,000 persons in the Commonwealth who have more than appreciative for you and your efforts securing their freedom, who are now eligible to pursue those new freedoms associated with having their felonies expunged forever, giving them a fresh start and a new lease on life going forward with House Bill 40. Benham, please tell the audience the best means by which to contact you, including the one-of-a-kind website, helpexpungeme.com.
Well, helpexpungeme.com is directed to provide information to all Kentuckians in an easy-to-read format. To do is to explain to people what expungement is, that it is the legal process for removing charges and convictions from your legal record. Most people don't understand the law. They don't understand that charges, if they were found not guilty or dismissed by the court, still remain on your criminal record for the rest of your life unless you go to court and you ask the court, petition the court to expunge those records.
We're here tonight with a much-celebrated guest, Attorney Benham Sims, and we're talking about House Bill 40. Michael, let's take it into break. We'll be right back.
Where Louisville comes to talk. Talk Radio 1080.
I'm a 45-year-old male, obviously. I grew up in Covington, Kentucky, and back in 1989 I committed a crime in Campbell County, Kentucky, and I was sentenced to 2 years in prison for that crime. When I was a kid, I didn't really understand the ramifications of that, but later on in life, it came back to bite me so many times. I mean, getting a job, voting, just all kind of things. It really, really, really disables you in a lot of ways that you don't really think about. Well, thanks to some good people, they got together and they passed this House Bill 40. Maybe I can expunge that off my record. It'll be like it never happened. I'm in school right now, and I'm going into the medical field.
But thanks to some good people, he states. In all of the Ask a Lawyer broadcasts to date, that piece probably my most favorite audio clip of all. The most moving story of a once convicted felon, a father of 5, following House Bill 40, signed into law on July 15, 2016, the felony record expunged, gone forever, and it happening just 3 days on July 18th, thanks to the hard work of you, Benham, and your efforts toward the felony expungement legislation, House Bill 40. He's an African-American gentleman who, as a teenager, as you heard, he was caught in a crime taking a stereo. Some 25 years later, a third of his life, he appears before a joint judiciary committee meeting in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, raising 5 children, could not get a job, had to create his own employment through a computer repair business, and since his expungement, his ambitions, he's been able to pursue his dream in the medical field, aspiring to be a physical therapist. In college now, and what's more, a 4.0 student. Imagine that. And he was one of the very first to have his felony record expunged. And just an incredible story, Benham. Your comments?
Well, I got to meet him. I got to meet him on the day that the bill was signed into law by Governor Bevin. And, you know, I think I've got the best job in the world. I've got the best job in the world because 8 to 10 hours a day, I get to help people move on to the next chapter of their lives. And the stories they come in and talk to me about, I remember there was a woman in her 50s who worked here in Jefferson County for a medical practice. And the doctors were retiring, and the doctors sold their practice. And this woman's husband was on disability. And when she was told she had to reapply to the doctors who bought the practice, she had 2 misdemeanor charges on her record. And she received those misdemeanor charges during a 5-year period. And under House Bill 40, there was no mechanism for this woman to erase these charges from her record. And I remember meeting with a gentleman. He was tattooed all up and down. He was a Teamster. He was a strong man. And he comes into my office, and he just broke down because he started telling his life story and what he did when he was in his early 20s. And when he was talking about it, the impact of his poor choice that day changed his whole life and the trajectory of his family, what he was able to provide for them. People need to realize that 97% of businesses now run background checks. And 50% of those people who are applying for a job with a business who does a background check will not get interviewed because of something on their record. This law has now been in effect for a year. 91,000 felons are eligible to expunge, but only 1,000 people to date have taken advantage of this. There are a lot of people like Darrell Owens and Julie Denton and Robin Webb and Morgan McGarvey and Gerald Neal, Phil Moffitt, people like David James and Kent Euler with GLI and our labor leaders really worked hard to get this bill passed. And our workers were at a distinct disadvantage, Randy, because every state surrounding us passed expungement reform except Kentucky. So when we have these billion-dollar bridge projects in northern Kentucky and here in Louisville, our workers could not get these high-paying, skilled labor jobs when someone across the river who had committed the same offense could get that job. And that's really what House Bill 40 has done for all of us. It's helped these men and women who've made a mistake, were in the wrong place at the wrong time. And trust me, I'm not making excuses for their behavior. I was a prosecutor. I was used to it, to prosecuting people. But these people were not subject to a life sentence and should not be subject to a life sentence. We, as a community here in Kentucky, have finally taken the lead and made a difference.
Speaking of stories, Benham, we do have a caller on the line. It is Drew. Drew, welcome to Ask a Lawyer. You're on with attorney Benham Sims.
Hey, guys. I've had, actually, it's hard for me to talk about it. I've had 2 DUIs. The second one was reduced down to a DUI 1. It was with a 5-year period. And it has been 3 years now, and I'm clean and sober, and I've lost opportunities for additional employment because of this. Is there anything for me? Can I do anything?
Well, the answer is yes, you will be able to expunge those. The problem is that on the same date that expungement was passed, or in the same session, the Senate passed out and the House approved Senate Bill 56. And Senate Bill 56 changed the look-back provision that prosecutors and the courts use to be able to calculate DUI first, second, third, and felony offenses. So while you'll be eligible in probably, I think what you're talking about is 7 years, you will be eligible 10 years after the end of your sentence or probation, whichever is longer. And, the most important thing you're telling me is that you're sober and you're not going to reoffend. I do have to caution people out there. If they commit a felony DUI, that is not one of the offenses that will be eligible to expunge. But you're right.
Correct.
The collateral consequences, those things that happen to you outside a courtroom, are far more severe, far more life-changing than any sentence a judge could give you.
I agree wholeheartedly about that.
And just so you know, the Supreme Court just decided this issue on September 28th in the case of Commonwealth versus Jackson and Commonwealth versus Denson, because we defense attorneys challenged that. You were told when you entered your plea that you could get it expunged after 5 years. The Supreme Court ruled that we didn't have a constitutional basis to challenge the legislative intent of moving the look-back period to 10 years from 5 years. And that's a shame. And I thought it's especially a shame for people with first-time offenses because it takes a third of their work life from them.
So if I can ask an additional question. So if I've got the first DUI in, say, 2012 or 2011, I got the second in 2013, and I actually paid a good lawyer, and he was able to get it reduced to another DUI 1. When would I be able to try to get that expunged? After the 7 years or after the 10 years?
Well, you'll be able to attack the.
I'm a little confused.
You will be able to attack the 2011 10 years after the entry of your plea, the sentence that you received, and any probation after that. 10 years after that date, you'll be able to expunge it. 10 years after the 2013 conviction, you will be able to expunge that.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for your call tonight, Drew. In the studio, the gold standard among legal counsel, 5-time winner of the prestigious Louisville Magazine's Top Lawyer of the Year award. Attorney Benham Sims is our guest. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Michael, let's go. Coming back with Ask a Lawyer right after this.
You're listening to Talk Radio 1080.
Our guest, Benham Sims, criminal defense attorney. Michael, let's go to audio soundbite 3.
Part of my role as a lawyer is to be your advocate, not only to explain to the court that you qualify as a matter of law, but it's the right thing to do. And the way I do that is that I meet with you. I talked to you about your life and what has changed since the mistake that you made years ago. If I can educate the court that you're a good person, that you're a good parent, that you're a good friend, that you're a good member of the community, that's going to go a long way in my ability to secure an expungement for you. Let's sit down and talk about your life and why you should qualify for an expungement. Call me at area code 502-589-6190. You can also text me at area code 502-648-1759. Let's work together to persuade the court that you are entitled to this, and it's the right thing to do.
Those are the words of our guest tonight, Benham Sims. Benham, you stated during the break that 70 million people in this United States, that's a quarter of the nation's population, have a criminal charge of some sort on their record. Benham, both the Commonwealth of Kentucky and you, both pioneers of sorts in similar aspects, as an amazing parallel in this broadcast being that your grandfather, John Y. Brown Sr., a congressman, Speaker of the House, author of the Civil Rights Act of 1966, thus making Kentucky, as a commonwealth, the first to pass into law this landmark civil rights legislation that in January of 1966, in fact, you, Benham, as an individual, a legal movement, a significant catalyst, instrumental in the signing into law by Governor Matt Bevin, the equally renowned landmark House Bill 40, that signed in July 2016, exactly 50 years later. I do emphasize the concept equally in both cases, because both legislative acts grant in their times almost unimaginable new freedoms. Benham, I'd like you to comment on this as well as the GLI's participation in this landmark legislation.
Well, there are 4 generations now in my family that have gone into the practice of law. And all of us, I think, have received our inspiration from John Y. Sr. My grandfather was the son of a tenant farmer in Union County, Kentucky. And by the time he was 28, he had tried murder trials in Lexington while in law school. He had played on the infamous Harvard versus Center team, the Legend of the Praying Colonels. And he had been, at 28 years old, imagine, the Speaker of the House, the youngest in Kentucky's history, and went on to become a congressman during Franklin Roosevelt's era. And I say that everyone who's followed Governor Brown, my cousin John Y. Brown III, who was Secretary of State, Pamela Brown, who's the CNN national correspondent, my sister Dorothy Sims, who is a renowned lawyer who your listeners would know from the Casey Anthony trial down in Florida. All of these, we received our inspiration from John Y. And John Y. was the reason why I got involved in expungement. This is something I love more than anything I've ever done. And I think a lot of people go to law school because they really do want to make a difference. They really do want to help people, whether they're prosecutors or public defenders, judges, or work for a corporation. They want to serve their client. And I'm so fortunate that I got to work with Darrell Owens and Russell Coleman, who's our new United States Attorney, and Tom Coffey and Morgan and Bottinger, and Tom Wine, our Jefferson County Commonwealth Attorney, to change the law and be one of, a core group of 100 people to help Kentuckians move on with their lives. You mentioned GLI, and GLI is our Chamber of Commerce. And I went to Darrell Owens and I said, Darrell, from what I'm reading about all these other states, we're doing this wrong in Kentucky. We're arguing that this is an issue involving social justice. It's not. It's economic development. It's about jobs. Every surrounding state had Republican governors, Republican legislators. Let's give them the raw meat, the Republican side, of what they care about, and that's jobs and what the people care about. It's the same end result. We're just coming at it from different angles. Let's merge and go together. And to GLI's credit, and I especially want to point out the leadership in GLI. They supported this bill. We met with David James, who's a council member in his office, and they asked questions where they already actually knew the answers. They were prepared to go forward, and it was stunning to me because I thought we were going to have to convince them. And Kent Euler and Sarah Wisman, they had already decided that they were going to go on board, and we met with the board of directors. Then we got from them, we got to the State Chamber of Commerce, Mac Brown, the head of the Republican Party. Governor Bevin was on board from the very beginning, and others. What these people have done is allow you now to erase your criminal record. You have this opportunity if you had a charge more than 5 years ago. You have this opportunity if you're sentenced on one of the 61 qualifying felonies. And you can go to my website, helpexpungeme.com. It's user-friendly. It will tell you just by looking whether you qualify or not. Go to the website. Save this website. Tell your friends about this website. There are hundreds of thousands of Kentuckians that can get better jobs, that can volunteer in our community and our schools if you merely get this off your record, and you need to.
Benham, speaking of your work alongside Darrell Owens, who participated in this legislation as Judiciary Chairman, and he himself a Kentucky House of Representatives, 43rd District, and your work with him. Michael, let's go now to audio soundbite 4.
It is an incredibly difficult task that those who have a record face in trying to secure employment. 25% of our population has something on their criminal record. They find it difficult not only just to secure employment, but even to grant interviews. Studies show that 50% of employers won't even interview you if you have anything on your record.
Again, the voice of our guest tonight, Benham Sims, in the studio. Benham, in a most telling appearance, testifying yourself before the Kentucky Legislative House Judiciary Committee alongside Chairman Darrell Owens, all culminating in the historic day, the passing of this legislation. Your comments of that day and that experience.
Well, I was speaking to a legislative committee that my grandfather had been on. He was in the House for 4 different decades. So that was an incredible honor. And what I think we were able to do is to personalize this through the testimony of others in several different venues, just how difficult it is to be a Kentuckian with a criminal record, how you're not getting the jobs with benefits, you're not getting the jobs of skilled laborers because you can't have a license, you can't be a plumber, an electrician with a felony offense. And what we were doing is we were shooting ourselves in the foot as a state. Every day we permitted someone who had the skill, that had the determination to become a full-time employee, to develop skills that they could provide better for their families. We were shooting ourselves by not letting this person achieve what they wanted to achieve in their life. And it's frustrating even today because this bill is just the beginning point. It's not the end. There are still changes that need to occur in this bill. We still need to grow the population that are eligible because every study has shown if you go 5 years without committing a new offense, you're no more likely to commit a new offense than Brittany or Jim to my right. It's just not going to happen. We also know from Harvard studies that men's brains develop slower in the area of appreciation of consequences of behavior. And so we need to recognize that young people make mistakes. We all grow up. We all hopefully learn from these mistakes. But these small crimes, these nonviolent offenses, offenses not committed against children, not sexual offenses, we need to give an avenue for people to overcome that mistake and to move on.
Benham, we're running short on time here, but I want to cover one additional piece of something that is vital to the subject matter tonight. That audio piece delivered by you obviously discusses the stifling and the crippling perils associated with a criminal record in one who efforts to move forward with their lives and being denied by employers for equal consideration for good-paying jobs. Who have a past criminal record. And prior to the expungement process, as you discuss on your website, helpexpungeme.com, and entitled on your website, Let's Get Started with the Process. Let's get started. Because a felony conviction on the record paralyzes a person. How does it paralyze a person in other aspects of their living as well? For example, Wes Powell discussed in his voting, his rights denied in voting, educational opportunities, even adopting a child?
Oh, absolutely. It impacts you. And the process was made easy for Kentucky citizens. What I like to do is I like to bring people in my office. I like them to go to helpexpungeme.com so they can learn how to erase their record and whether they qualify or not. Let's personalize your life story so I can talk to the prosecutor, I can talk to the judge, and show that not only is it a matter of right, it's a matter of grace that the court should grant. And I think courts enjoy doing this. They know the impact this has. And you can see by the number of judges that permit expungement throughout the state.
Benham, I do have a number of text questions tonight here. I'll cover what we can in the time allowed. This text question from Billy. I was charged with pot possession 3 years ago. Can that be erased from my record?
Eventually it can. Again, it's a misdemeanor, so it's 5 years. But what a lawyer can do for you that maybe you couldn't do for yourself is that I know that there's another way to get that charge voided, and that is under House Bill 463 that allows voiding of marijuana charges by completing a marijuana education program. Once it's voided, then we can go into court and get it expunged because the case was dismissed. And if you have a dismissed case, you don't have to wait more than 60 days. After 60 days on a dismissed charge, you can get that expunged. There's no 5-year or 10-year limit.
With time limits here, let's get one more in if we may. Benham, what does it cost? This is from Julie. Julie, what does it cost to expunge my boyfriend's felony charge for prescription forgery? And how does that work?
Well, it depends on if they do it yourself. I mean, you can represent yourself on a murder trial or represent yourself in a divorce. I think most lawyers charge anywhere from $1,000 to $2,500 for a felony offense and maybe $250 for a misdemeanor offense. And then the state charges a filing fee of $100 on misdemeanor and $500 on felony.
In the studio tonight, we were honored to have the gold standard among legal counsel, 5-time winner of the prestigious Louisville Magazine's Top Lawyer of the Year award. Benham Sims has been our guest. Don't forget his website, a one-of-a-kind, helpexpungeme.com.